In a forest, a group of people were leading hunting dogs to chase down a little girl. Her whole body was covered in blood, and it seemed she had been running all night. Eventually, when she reached a farm, she collapsed from exhaustion. Fortunately, the owner of the farm saved her life and decided to adopt her. The reason she was being hunted was because she was one of the children who had been part of a secret experiment. That experiment was conducted by an underground organization in South Korea. The organization carried out human body experiments with the aim of turning children into emotionless killing machines. The experiment succeeded in creating super assassins, specifically targeting children. After the project succeeded, the organization feared that they could not control these superhumans, so a purge was carried out under the direction of Dr. Baek. The children were brutally killed. Only one girl, Jae-yoon, managed to escape. At that time, many hunting dogs were released to track her down, but they only managed to capture another boy. Jae-yoon ran all night and eventually collapsed from exhaustion. After being rescued by the farm owner, the doctor said she only had external injuries but might have lost her memory. The farmer's wife, seeing how pitiful and weak the girl was, decided together with her husband to adopt her. Time passed quickly. Jae-yoon grew into a young woman. She was beautiful and intelligent. However, her peaceful life began to face hardship as the price of cattle kept falling. Her family's financial situation became difficult, so her father took out a loan to invest. Now, they owed a large sum of money. Meanwhile, her mother was constantly ill and they couldn't afford treatment, which caused her condition to worsen. At the same time, Jae-yoon frequently suffered from headaches. When she went for a checkup, the doctor told her she only had 3 months left to live. If she wanted a complete cure, she needed a bone marrow transplant from her biological parents, but Jae-yoon didn't know who they were. She reluctantly accepted death. Jae-yoon was close friends with a girl named Myung-hee, whose father was a police officer. Seeing that Jae-yoon's family was struggling, Myung-hee suggested that she sign up for a talent search program because the prize was up to $500 million won. Jae-yoon had always worked on the farm with her father, so she never paid attention to such programs. However, when she heard about the huge prize, she decided to join the contest. With her pretty and gentle appearance, along with a beautiful singing voice, Jae-yoon impressed the judges. On top of that, she spontaneously performed a magic trick, which helped her easily pass the preliminary round. Not long after, she became a viral sensation, famous throughout the country. Everyone thought it was just magic, but only Dr. Baek knew it was the supernatural power she had created in Jae-yoon. This time, after her failure 10 years ago, she was determined to capture Jae-yoon. A few days later, the program held a live broadcast in Seoul. Jae-yoon and her best friend had to take the train from their hometown to the city. On the way, Myung-hee took out a bag of boiled eggs and a bottle of 7-Up. She even said she would be Jae-yoon's manager. Myung-hee joked that they should make a contract and split prize money in half. At that moment, a man sitting directly across from them heard it and laughed loudly. The two girls looked at him, not understanding what was going on. They thought he was just another passenger on the train, but in reality, he was an assassin sent by Dr. Baek to capture Jae-yoon. He was Nobleman. Nobleman looked at the innocent girl in front of him, her mouth still full of eggs, and wondered if he had mistaken her for someone else. He called her by the nickname Witch, but Jae-yoon still didn't understand what he was talking about. She even asked herself if he really knew who she was. Nobleman talked for a while, but it had no effect. He gave a crooked smile, then suddenly swung his hand, intending to slap Jae-yoon across the face. The girl was so frightened that she burst into tears. Myung-hee, who was sitting next to her, panicked and shouted. She threatened Nobleman, saying her father was a police officer, and demanded that he leave. Seeing that people around were starting to pay attention, Nobleman quickly stood up to leave. Before going, he gave Jae-yoon a big smile and said, "See you again." At that moment, Nobleman was extremely annoyed. A man who was on the phone accidentally bumped into him. The assassin didn't want to say much. He gently crushed the man's hand and snapped his neck. Then, with one hand, Nobleman casually tossed the man's body onto the train tracks. Not long after, the two girls were hurrying to the studio. Although Jae-yoon was exhausted from the long journey, she still completed her performance excellently and earned a spot in the quarterfinals. When the two were about to head home, Jae-yoon suddenly had another headache and even had a nosebleed. After she got through the pain, they went outside and took a taxi home. While waiting for the car, a man with a scarred face suddenly stepped out and greeted the two girls. Ju-won and another man in a black suit pulled over and asked them questions. It was clear that these people did not have good intentions. Jo-won said that he hadn't seen Jae-yoon in a long time. He suggested that she get in the car and have a talk with him. Jae-yoon quickly made up an excuse, saying she was about to miss her train, to refuse, but he didn't seem willing to pass up the opportunity to speak with her. Taking advantage of the moment when the men were distracted by the girls, Myung-hee immediately pulled Jae-yoon into a taxi. Not long after, two girls were at the train station, waiting for a bus to go home. At that moment, Nobleman appeared. He kept teasing Jae-yoon. The assassin even made a veiled comment about her adoptive parents being old, and that it wouldn't be surprising if they died. Hearing that, Jae-yoon panicked and ran home right away. At the same time, she told Myung-hee to call her father to come to her house. In fact, this was part of the assassin's plan. He wanted to see whether Jae-yoon truly cared about her adoptive parents. Nobleman intended to use them as leverage to force her to go with him. The assassin had also investigated and found out that Jae-yoon's adoptive father was an interior designer and that his son and grandson had died in a car accident. Nobleman and his men parked in front of Jae-yoon's house. At that moment, the police came to check. Myung-hee's father asked to see their identification, but since they didn't have anything suspicious, the police let them go. A while later, Jae-yoon came rushing home in a panic. When she entered the house and saw her father and Officer Dodd sitting and playing chess, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Before Officer Dodd left, he reminded Jae-yoon to be careful of those men, as he didn't think they looked trustworthy. Meanwhile, Dr. Bak told Mr. Choi to take a rest, saying that he had worked hard for the past 20 years, but Mr. Choi realized that the doctor was trying to get rid of him, so he decided to work for someone else. They shared one common goal: capturing Jae-yoon, for her brain was a perfect treasure trove of intelligence, ideal for creating elite assassin soldiers. Moreover, Uncle Choi could cure his incurably necrotic arm. That night, Myung-hee slept over at Jae-yoon's house. In the middle of the night, the girl woke up to drink water while Jae-yoon lay beside her, battling a severe headache. Soon after, Jae-yoon sensed intruders. She rushed out, only to find a gun pressed to her head. The moment she opened the door, another man held a knife to Myung-hee's throat. The scar-faced man slowly approached, greeting Jae-yoon, asked that did she remember him. Jae-yoon insisted he had the wrong person, but the scarred man coldly confirmed his identity, revealing the scars on his face were her handiwork. As Jae-yoon grew increasingly bewildered, a subordinate pressed the knife deeper into Myung-hee's neck, drawing blood. They threatened to kill her friend unless she cooperated. Jae-yoon kept whispering, "That wasn't her." Suddenly, her expression darkened. In a flash, she snatched a gun from a nearby henchman and shot the others dead. Before the scarred man could react, Jae-yoon punched him in the face, pinned him against the wall, and choked him. Jae-yoon struck with lightning speed, leaving the scar-faced man no time to react. As she hit him in the face, she calmly asked why he was still being so stubborn. Then, she gently pulled the trigger. He fell down the stairs and died instantly. Jae-yoon watched without a trace of emotion on her face. Myung-hee had witnessed everything. She was terrified and couldn't say a word. At that moment, the assassin nobleman slowly appeared. He clapped repeatedly and praised Jae-yoon, saying she was impressive. Nobleman asked Myung-hee if she had ever noticed how strange her friend was. Clearly, Jae-yoon worked on the farm and did house chores. She even spent a lot of time hanging out and rarely studied, yet her academic performance was always at the top. Not only in school, but nationwide. Jae-yoon wasn't just academically excellent, she had many other talents as well. Hearing this, Myung-hee seemed to realize something and looked toward her friend. Nobleman demanded that Jae-yoon go with him. If she refused, he would kill everyone she knew. Myung-hee shook her head and begged Jae-yoon to stay, but Jae-yoon didn't listen. She told Myung-hee to take care of her adoptive parents in her place. On the way to the laboratory, the assassin exposed Jae-yoon's carefully planned scheme. Her adoptive parents, though heartbroken over the loss of their child, found and raised the sweet girl that was Jae-yoon. Time passed just like that. Before long, they arrived at the base. Dr. Bak was watching them through a screen. Seeing the product she had created finally return, she looked extremely pleased. Nobleman ordered his men to tie Jae-yoon to a chair, then left. As Jae-yoon looked around the room in confusion, Dr. Bak suddenly spoke. She introduced herself and said that she had been searching for Jae-yoon for the past 10 years. Then she ordered her subordinates to inject a drug into Jae-yoon. The doctor said the drug would help Jae-yoon recover her memories. Not long after the injection, Jae-yoon's memories immediately flooded back. She remembered what happened 10 years ago. Jae-yoon and other children were captured by the doctor for experimentation. Most of them were killed, and their brains were taken for further decoding. Only Jae-yoon had managed to escape. The doctor said she was the world's leading expert in brain decoding, and that Jae-yoon's extraordinary brain was created by her own hands. She claimed Jae-yoon was the most perfect being, possessing both physical capability and violent instinct. Soon after, Jae-yoon suffered a severe headache. Blood began pouring from her nose and mouth. Seeing this, Dr. Bak ordered her subordinates to inject another dose of medication into Jae-yoon. She said it was a gift she had prepared for her daughter. This drug would allow Jae-yoon to unlock the full potential of her brain. However, it would only last for 1 month. Without a dose for the following month, the symptoms would intensify. The doctor intended to use this drug to control Jae-yoon and force her to work for her, but suddenly, Jae-yoon gave a cunning smile. She greeted Dr. Bak, someone she hadn't seen in a long time. Nobleman, who had been observing the whole time, realized they had been tricked. It was clear that Jae-yoon had been looking for them, not the other way around. Since Jae-yoon couldn't locate the organization's base on her own, she deliberately revealed her identity to lure them out. He immediately headed to the room, where Jae-yoon disabled the machinery with just a glance. Breaking free from the chair, she slammed the nearby henchman's head against the wall, knocking him unconscious. Picking up his gun, she fired at Dr. Baek, but the bulletproof glass held. Jae-yoon stepped closer to the mirror, her murderous gaze and cunning smile terrifying Dr. Baek. The doctor instantly ordered anesthetic gas to be pumped in, but moments later, Jae-yoon had vanished. As Doc Baek frantically searched, two of her subordinates were shot dead. Jae-yoon appeared behind her, pressing the gun to the doctor's head. Seizing the moment, Jae-yoon revealed the truth. Knowing she would die, she had spent 10 years searching for Drive Baek to no avail, until she realized it'd be easier to let the doctor find her. The plan worked beyond expectations, proving the drug's effectiveness. Dr. Baek couldn't help but admire Jae-yoon's brilliance, until the girl shot her in the leg. Jae-yoon demanded Dr. Baek give her the formula. Meanwhile, Uncle Choi arrived at Dr. Baek's base with his men. They wanted to take Jae-yoon from the doctor's hands. As soon as they entered the base, Choi's men opened fire on the assassins. Nobleman and his group, being mutants, showed no fear. One mutant stepped forward and hurled an iron door at the gunmen, instantly knocking them all down. Seeing this, Uncle Choi remained unshaken and even smirked at them. Nobleman scoffed at him before walking away, leaving two elite assassins behind to finish the job. Having participated in the experiments, Uncle Choi knew the mutants' weakness. He ordered his men to aim for their heads. With his men covering him, Choi pursued Nobleman. After the hail of bullets, only the female assassin survived. She drew her knife and swiftly took down every armed opponent in sight, wiping out Choi's entire squad in moments. Meanwhile, Jae-yoon was dragging the doctor to find the hidden drug formula. At a crossroads, she hesitated. Suddenly, Nobleman charged in from nowhere and struck Jae-yoon, sending her flying. Even though she crashed hard into the door, she wasn't hurt at all and slowly stood back up. Jae-yoon complimented him, saying he had improved a lot compared to before. Nobleman told her to be careful with him because he was no longer the same. Jae-yoon didn't respond right away. Instead, she grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the door. It was clear that she and Nobleman were not on the same level. Hearing that, Nobleman couldn't accept it. He grabbed her leg and slammed her hard into the wall. Then, he continuously punched and kicked her, but couldn't land a single hit on Jae-yoon. Jae-yoon, however, was different. She merely tapped Nobleman's head against the wall, flung him into an iron door, and slapped him repeatedly across the face. Seizing an opportunity, Nobleman snapped Jae-yoon's arm. Even with only one arm left, her fighting spirit didn't waver. She tossed Nobleman aside, casually reset her broken arm to let it heal, and they resumed their battle. Eventually, she kicked him so hard that the door burst open. Using her powers, Jae-yoon summoned a gun to her hand and shot the fleeing PhD in the leg. She then turned back into the room and fired relentlessly at Nobleman. He used his powers to block the bullets with an iron cabinet before suddenly appearing in front of Jae-yoon and unloading his gun. But Jae-yoon effortlessly deflected the bullets with her hand and hurled him outside. As she moved in for the kill, Uncle Choi suddenly appeared and shot Jae-yoon in the shoulder. The PhD screamed at him to shoot both of them in the head, but before she could finish, the female assassin held a knife to her throat, only for Choi to blast her away. Just when it seemed he'd come to help the PhD, as she offered him a promotion, Choi fired a shot into her chest, killing Dr. Baek on the spot. The female assassin, who was presumed dead earlier, unexpectedly stood up and continued fighting with Uncle Choi, but ultimately, she was still defeated by him. Confident that he could personally kill the #1 assassin Jae-yoon, Uncle Choi didn't even get a chance to speak before she snapped his neck. Now, only Jae-yoon and Nobleman remained. He held up a vial of the drug and told her the rest was in the control room, revealing it was researched at the main laboratory. If she wanted to know its location, she would have to keep fighting him. The female assassin, still alive, slowly reappeared and charged at Jae-yoon. Jae-yoon effortlessly stopped her, forcing the assassin to kneel before crushing her skull. Seizing the opportunity, Nobleman aimed his gun at Jae-yoon's head. Without a word, she used her powers to immobilize him, then pulled a knife from her own abdomen and stabbed it into his stomach. She broke his arm and drove the knife into his shoulder. Jae-yoon demanded the location of the research facility, but Nobleman refused to answer, sticking out his tongue mockingly. She immediately shot him dead. After collecting all the drugs in the room, Jae-yoon left. She went straight to the hospital to give the medicine to her mother, keeping only 2 vials for herself. At this moment, her adoptive father finally confessed his true feelings after taking her in. When Jae-yoon grew up, she killed many cows and dogs, filling him with fear and regret for adopting the demon girl. He had wanted to drive her away, but his wife stopped him. She firmly believed that raising the girl with love would reduce Jae-yoon's violent tendencies and turn her into a sweet child. Jae-yoon remained expressionless and silently walked away. 3 months later, Jae-yoon went to meet Dr. Baek Baek's twin sister, her biological mother. Standing beside her mother was another artificially created super assassin. Time passed quickly. Elsewhere, another similar experiment was being conducted. A group of assassins wearing gas masks and armed with guns prepared to attack the laboratory. They slaughtered everyone mercilessly, leaving behind only blood and corpses. Just as the assassins left, a girl suddenly regained consciousness. With IV lines still attached to her body, she was clearly a test subject, codenamed ARC-1. Covered in blood, she stumbled out onto the icy floor. Suddenly, a splitting headache struck her. Blood gushing from her nose, visions of earthquakes and tsunamis flashed through her mind. The snow around her began floating mid-air. When the pain subsided, everything returned to normal. With an innocent expression, ARC-1 wandered through the forest until she reached a road. She stepped in front of a speeding car, but the driver swerved just in time. Inside the vehicle were gangsters kidnapping a girl named Kyung-hee. They did this to force her to hand over the land to their boss. Since ARC-1 blocked their path, the gang leader ordered his men to take her into the car. Young-do kept interrogating her, but ARC-1 remained silent. Seeing the blood on her, the gangsters grew suspicious. Unsure if it was real or fake, fearing she might memorize their license plate, they decided to kill her. Kyung-hee, aware of their plan, tried to defend ARC-1, insisting the girl couldn't see the license plate, but ARC-1 recited the plate number and the car's registered address aloud, sealing her fate in their eyes. Determined to silence her, the gangsters tightened their grip. Kyung-hee, terrified they'd go through with it, shouted for them to let ARC-1 go. Two men beside her punched Kyung-hee to shut her up. Young-do, curious about ARC-1's identity, grabbed her face, only for her to snap his wrist in response. The two car side doors burst open, and the vehicle swerved into a pine forest. Luckily, Kyung-hee, wearing a seatbelt, survived. Staggering out, she saw ARC-1 about to execute the gang leader and stopped her, arguing he was just following orders. After calling an ambulance with one of the gangsters' phones, Kyung-hee led ARC-1 away. She then contacted her uncle, a veterinarian, for help. Uncle Do-jun drank a glass of liquor to clear his mind. Then he began removing each bullet from ARC-1's body. Do-jun looked at the X-ray screen and saw a small object lodged in the cerebellum, but he couldn't take it out. Seeing the numerous bullets and fragments inside the girl's body filled Do-jun with fear. He drank another glass of liquor, not noticing that the girl's wounds had already healed on their own. Do-jun wondered if he was seeing things, or if maybe this girl wasn't even human. He scratched his head, pinched his ears for a while, then downed a full glass of liquor to clear his mind. After finishing everything, Do-jun went outside to meet Kyung-hee. He told his niece that ARC-1 was truly strange. Kyung-hee heard it but didn't care much. She said she would keep ARC-1 at home until things settled down. The two of them got in the car and drove continuously until nightfall before arriving home. Kyung-hee's younger brother, Dae-ju, saw that his sister was injured and reached out to check on her. ARC-1 thought he was trying to hurt Kyung-hee, so she quickly stopped him. Not long after, dinner was served. ARC-1 swallowed nervously at the sight of the delicious dishes, but she was too shy to eat. While eating, Dae-ju mocked his sister's cooking, saying it wasn't good. Hearing that, Kyung-hee hit him hard. ARC-1 didn't pay any attention and began eating heartily. Not long after, when Kyung-hee returned, the entire table of food had already been cleared by the girl. After the meal, Kyung-hee led ARC-1 to a room and gave her a set of clothes. Then Kyung-hee thanked the girl for saving her. In another scene, the mercenary Jo-hyun was sitting and smoking a cigarette. Around her were numerous bloody corpses. Jo-hyun saw that the girl in front of her was still moving, so she raised her gun and emptied the entire magazine into the girl's head. At that moment, Jo-hyun's teammate called her over the radio, asking where she was. She ordered him to come and clean up place. As soon as they got to the car, her teammate kept asking questions, which made Jo-hyun extremely annoyed, so she snapped at him. When she returned to the hotel, Jo-hyun used her hand to pull out the bullets embedded in her body. Surprisingly, the wounds healed instantly, just like ARC-1's. At that moment, the blood vessels on her body bulged like tree roots. Jo-hyun tried to suppress it by punching the wall. After cleaning herself up, Jo-hyun received a message to meet at the base on Jeju Island. The message was from Dr. Baek, PhD, Baek's younger sister. She told Jo-hyun about ARC-1. Years ago, PhD Baek and her younger sister found the perfect host, a woman working at the Sungwin fashion company. At that time, the woman was pregnant with a baby girl. Dr. Baek and her younger sister said the child would have a twin. They extracted the embryo and cloned it, accidentally creating the most perfect being, ARC-1. After the massacre at the secret lab, they didn't understand how ARC-1 managed to survive and escape. The doctor feared that the girl might become a threat like Ja-yoon once did, so she ordered Jo-hyun to kill ARC-1 by any means necessary. Jo-hyun knew the consequences if the higher-ups found out, but because of a debt from 10 years ago, she had no choice but to comply. Dr. Baek gave her a tracking device to locate ARC-1, because the girl had a chip implanted in her brain to record record activity and location. They remembered that during treatment, chip was discovered in ARC-1's cerebellum, but it couldn't be removed. If she moved within close enough range of the chip, the device would send out a signal. All Jo Hyun and her team could do was drive around the island, hoping ARC-1 was somewhere nearby. On their way, they noticed an Audi following them. The teammates stepped on the gas to escape. Inside the Audi, the two men were confused about what was happening when suddenly another vehicle crashed directly into theirs. Jo Hyun's teammate stepped out and greeted the two men politely. The two men, local agents, ignored his greeting and threw the car door at him. Jo Hyun's teammate remarked that this was impolite. A fight ensued between the two sides. The two agents were surprisingly strong, but after a few rounds, they realized they were no match for him. In just a few seconds, the two agents were defeated. Jo Hyun remained calm in the car and instructed their superior to meet her. Afterward, the two got back in the car and drove around the island in search of ARC-1. Unexpectedly, the tracking device emitted a signal indicating they were near the girl, but the exact location was still unknown, so they had to drive around a few more times. That evening, at Kyung-hee's house, ARC-1 was resting when she suddenly experienced a severe headache. Time seemed to stop, and the voice calling daughter to come to her mother echoed in her mind. It took a while before it stopped, and everything returned to normal. Outside, gang leader Young-do and his subordinates arrived at Kyung-hee's house. They intended to build a resort here, but Kyung-hee's father refused to sell the land. Not long ago, he was killed by them for not cooperating. Kyung-hee stood at the door with a gun, declaring that anyone who entered would be shot, but clearly, Kyung-hee alone couldn't possibly fight off the gangsters. Even when her younger brother Dae-gil rushed out to help, he got beaten badly by them. Young-do then used Dae-gil as leverage, threatening to kill him if Kyung-hee didn't sign the papers. Seeing her still refusing, he ordered his men to beat Dae-gil again. Kyung-hee looked up at the rooftop, and everyone followed her gaze, only to be shocked by the sight of ARC-1 standing there. One thug yelled, "What was that kid trying to do, scare them?" Suddenly, ARC-1 jumped down, landing softly and startling the gangsters. She approached the one who had hit Kyung-hee. Just a light push sent him flying. The guy who'd beaten Dae-gil got his leg broken before being thrown aside by the collar. Gang leader Young-do watched in terror as his men charged at ARC-1, only to be effortlessly knocked away. Facing ARC-1, he backed away fearfully until Kyung-hee slapped him back to his senses. Immediately, he and his men fled in their car. Witnessing ARC-1's superhuman abilities, Dae-gil thought she must be an alien. The boy came up with an idea to turn ARC-1 into a YouTuber to earn money. The next day, Dae-gil showed her how people made money on YouTube, but she was only interested in the food. To gain ARC-1's trust, he took her to the supermarket to buy a lot of snacks. Seeing the two children getting along so well made Kyung-hee happy. Back with Jo Hyun, she had a meeting with the boss of the two local agents from the day before. He was also her former superior. The director asked why Dr. Baek had instructed her to participate in the assassination attempt on ARC-1. He also revealed that Jae-yoon had attacked laboratories in Hong Kong, Glasgow, Bangkok, and Shanghai before arriving in Jeju, carrying important artifacts and drugs. Jo Hyun said she didn't care and warned him not to send anyone to follow her again. Those hunting ARC-1 were not just Jo Hyun, but also 4 artificial assassins who had destroyed the secret laboratory. ARC-1 should have died from 2 gunshots to the head, but they didn't understand why she was still alive. This meant their previous mission had failed, and now they had to continue hunting her down. After being defeated by ARC-1, gang leader Young-do planned his revenge. He led his men to find Do-jun to investigate. They asked who the girl living with Kyung-hee was, threatening to chop off his hands if he didn't tell. After obtaining the information, the gang knew ARC-1 was a target being hunted. Young-do ordered his subordinates to contact the other artificial assassins. At that moment, Kyung-hee was in the supermarket when she received a phone call asking for help from her uncle. Young-do broke his promise and cut off the man's finger. Do-jun advised Kyung-hee not to let ARC-1 stay, otherwise she would be in danger. He knew ARC-1's identity was far from ordinary, and moreover, Young-do would do everything he could to get that piece of land, so it would be best for Kyung-hee to hand it over to them. As Kyung-hee got into the car, Jo Hyun also got in. She showed Kyung-hee a video recording of ARC-1 killing people in a laboratory. Jo Hyun told Kyung-hee that if she didn't want her younger brother to be killed, she should run away with him, because ARC-1 could turn into a monster at any moment, and she should trust them to handle it. Meanwhile, Dae-ju took ARC-1 to the rooftop and watched shooting stars together. The boy kept asking ARC-1 to become a YouTuber to make money. He then told her to perform like Jae-yoon to become famous. He kept persuading ARC-1 Arc-1, but at first, she didn't care. However, when Daeju said he would order pizza and fried chicken, Arc-1's eyes lit up and she said she could do what Jae-yoon did. Right after that, objects around them, including dogs and cats, suddenly floated into the air. Witnessing the scene, Daeju couldn't help but be astonished. That same night, Yongdu and his subordinates went to the hotel to meet the 4 artificial assassins. As soon as they stepped through the door, 2 men beside him were immediately killed. At first, Yongdu thought he could use Arc-1's location to make a deal with them for money, but he didn't expect that his partners this time were actually the artificial assassins themselves. They killed people with extreme cruelty. One of the women threatened that if he didn't talk, she would rip out his heart and liver. This time, Yongdu was truly terrified, but after years of living in the underworld, he had naturally hardened himself. Yongdu immediately offered to go with them, saying he might be useful. The female assassin found the idea reasonable. She agreed and gave him a vial of enhancement drug after he revealed Arc-1's location. At that moment, Kyung-hee had returned home. She couldn't bear it, so she told Arc-1 to run away quickly, saying it was very dangerous here. The girl immediately sensed the presence of assassins nearby. Jo-hun was watching Arc-1 from outside. The artificial assassins were just waiting for Kyung-hee and her younger brother to leave the house before firing a rocket inside. But right at that moment, a group of people suddenly arrived by car. It was the 4 cloned assassins along with Young-do and his subordinates. Daeju hurriedly led Arc-1 to the rooftop. He showed her the escape route through the forest that would lead to the main road. One of Jo-hyun's assassins noticed, but he didn't fire because they didn't want to kill innocent people. Downstairs, Kyung-hee held up a hunting rifle and threatened Young-do, but he was already enhanced and showed no fear. Young-do fired at her without hesitation. Daeju heard the gunshot and rushed down to save his sister, leaving Arc-1 on the rooftop. The assassins seized this opportunity and fired a rocket, blowing up a corner of the house. After the explosion, the signal from Arc-1's chip disappeared. The assassin holding the rocket tried to scan the area but couldn't spot the girl. His visibility was limited. Suddenly, the cloned female assassin dropped from above and attacked him. She moved at blinding speed. Bullets couldn't touch her, and her knife skills were lethally precise. Both cloned assassins possessed rapid movement and regeneration, but caught off guard, the male assassin was quickly overpowered. Within moments, he was dead. Before the female assassin could celebrate, a mysterious figure blasted her away. Meanwhile, Young-do was about to execute Kyung-hee and her younger brother when Jo-hyun's sniper shot interrupted. The artificial female assassin activated her powers, transforming wooden fences into sharp spears that impaled Young-do's men. Now, only the artificial assassins remained, pitting Jo-hyun's squad against the Shanghai assassin team in a final showdown. The enemies also possessed terrifying strength and regenerative abilities, creating an extremely tense battle. Jo-hyun, outnumbered, was quickly overwhelmed. She tried to shield Daeju with her body, but the bullet pierced through her and killed the boy. Filled with rage, Jo-hyun grabbed a knife to strike back, but was blocked by an assassin. With all her strength, she counterattacked and stabbed his neck. Seeing this, the short-haired female assassin swiftly lunged at Jo-hyun, landing fatal blows that left her defenseless, waiting for death. At the critical moment, Jo-hyun's teammates saved her. Meanwhile, Arc-1 regained consciousness in the forest and encountered the Shanghai female assassin. The assassin drew 2 knives, charging to kill Arc-1, but she was clearly no match. Arc-1 effortlessly snapped the knives and drove one into the assassin's head, killing her instantly. Dragging the corpse back, Arc-1 was enraged to see Kyung-hee and Daeju's bodies on the ground. A male artificial assassin mocked Arc-1 for looking weak, but before he could finish, she severed his right arm. As she fought, Arc-1 created a barrier, cutting off all escape routes for the Shanghai assassins. A female assassin attempted to ambush Arc-1 but failed. Instead, Arc-1 used her telekinetic power to slash the assassin's throat with her own knife. The male assassin, having regenerated his severed arm, manipulated rocks and earth to attack Arc-1. To his shock, she merely flicked her wrist, summoning a whirlwind that shredded him into dust. The remaining female assassin staggered backward in terror. Just then, a car arrived. A woman stepped out, none other than Jae-yoon. Without hesitation, she executed her own ally. Jae-yoon revealed that she and Arc-1 were biological sisters, and the assassins were her subordinates. She had ordered them retrieve Arc-1, but they'd gone too far, nearly killing her. Jae-yoon's goal was to reunite with her younger sister and find their mother. Rumors suggested Arc-1 had a psychic link to their mother, who was also searching for her. Only by meeting their mother and receiving a bone marrow transplant could Jae-yoon cure her lifelong illness. She injected Arc-1 with a sedative and they drove away together. After everyone left, Jo-hun's teammate regained consciousness. He'd feigned death, knowing he was outmatched. Jo-hun, also severely wounded, couldn't pursue Arc-1. She called the director for backup, only to realize he'd been watching from the rooftop all along. Didn't worry, the director director said that he knew where Jae-yoon and Arc 1 were headed. The film ends here. Thank you for listening, goodbye, and see you again.